So what exactly is an imposter? Who's an imposter? Are you an imposter? So I want you to think about the most famous imposter that comes to mind. Bernie Madoff? Woo, imposter. How about somebody more frequently and recently, Sam Bankman-Fried? Woo! He makes Bernie seem like an amateur. Imposter. What about Charles Kuralt? Now, unless you're my age, you may not know who that is, but when I was a kid, I listened to Charles Kuralt, watched him on TV, Sunday nights, CBS, because he traveled the country in a motorhome, and he had this human interest story segment on CBS. He's in the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And I loved watching On the Road with Charles Kuralt because he did human interest stories and featured people all over this country, just like you and me, that had interesting stories. Well, I thought that was fantastic, and to make it more interesting, when I moved back to Charlotte after 13 winters away in Cleveland, Ohio, I like Charlotte way better. A house became available on Charles Kuralt's boyhood home property, and we bought it. And I thought, man, how cool! I get to look at Charles Kuralt's home. It's 40 paces away from my front door. Until I found out, after Charles Kuralt passed away, it was revealed that he had two families, different parts of the country, and neither of which knew about each other. Imposter. Now, I don't believe that you have to be a crypto or Ponzi scheme king to be an imposter. I don't think that you have to have two families that don't know about each other to be an imposter. But I think that when we try to be somebody we're not, we're likely an imposter. So I want you to think, and let's bring it a little closer to home. Who's an imposter that you actually know? Not know about, but that you actually know. Well, for me, that was really easy because every time I looked in the mirror, an imposter looked back at me. At least that's how I felt. Most of my life. So I never even heard this term imposter syndrome until a couple years ago. And I did some research and I found out that two female psychologists observed this phenomenon in the 1970s, early 70s, among their high-achieving female clients. And they were plagued by these kind of thoughts. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm in over my head. I'm really not that good. I can't reveal this or that about myself because people will reject me. I've got to keep certain things hidden. I'm a fraud. Can you relate to any of those? And if you can, I got good news for you because misery loves company, evidently, because they say that 70% of the population deals with this. And I can tell you for a fact that pretty much every CEO that I've either coached or that has confided in me has dealt with this. So I have good news. We've got 7 weapons that I found that actually silence this imposter. So the best visual description that I've found of this is imagine a 1-inch circle. In this 1-inch circle, there is type that says, what I know. Now, this 1-inch circle is encompassed by a much larger 5-foot circle. And in this 5-foot circle, it says, what I think everyone else knows. What I think everyone else knows, what I think I know. Now, why is that discrepancy there? I'm not sure, but I think in today's Instagram society, we compare our behind-the-scenes reels with everybody else's show reels. Show reels, behind-the-scenes reels. Can you relate? I know this for a fact, too, that comparison kills gratitude. Not a good thing. So I'm going to share with you a little bit of my show reels and a little bit of my behind-the-scenes reels. And I'm going to talk more about my behind-the-scenes reels and some of these weapons. that I've found that actually help silence the imposter. So you heard a lot of my show reel, and this QR code will take you to my LinkedIn profile. Great place for show reels. All that stuff is true. The one thing that's not on my show reel on LinkedIn is the fact that this summer I'll have been married to Jennifer for 40 years. And what I'm like, I love my kids, I love my grandkids, but this lady has been with me. She knows my behind-the-scenes reel better than anybody. And she stuck by me. She has been through hell and back with some of the stuff that we've been through, and at times it's felt like we were careening down a mountain. The brakes just went out. I got the wheel. At least I got the wheel, but she's holding on for dear life. What I've been through is probably nothing compared to what you've been through. We've all been through stuff, okay? But when our loved ones have to go through it, that makes it harder. So, I'm going to go ahead and share with you the 7 weapons. The first weapon is I want you to realize you're not alone. When we feel like we're the only ones that have gone through this or that, or dealing with this or that, we bought a lie. And when we buy that lie, we go into an isolation chamber, and in that isolation chamber, guess what? The imposter screams. It echoes. I'm the only one that's going through this. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. False. Somebody on this planet has gone through what you've gone through, or is going through what you're going through. We weren't meant to walk alone. I believe that to my core. The second weapon. Thrive with it. That seems kind of weird. Well, as you heard, when I was 28 years old, I did my first turnaround. Didn't really know what I was doing, but we did turn it around. Had my name on the door. I thought I was going to be there forever. Until 3 years later, I catch my partner's hand in the financial cookie jar twice. Didn't tell me about it. What he did was wrong, and what he did was bad. And so I was at a dilemma. What do I do? My choices were either I expose this guy for what he's done, and it will destroy him. It would destroy him. Couldn't do that. Or I could take the agency across the street in Wichita, Kansas, and everybody knew who we were. And then if I don't destroy him and expose him, I destroy my name. A good name is to be valued above great riches, so I couldn't do that. So I was at this dilemma and this crossroads, and I thought, all right, I created this stupid, bonehead simple T-chart that I call Thrive With It. It'll take you 30 minutes to do it. It will set you free because it's not strengths and weaknesses. It's Thrive With It. The Thrive column, write all the stuff that makes you come alive. The Wither, all the stuff that drains your tank. That may even include stuff that you're really good at. You're just sick of it. How does that silence the imposter? Well, here's the deal. Whenever we spend more time in our Thrive zone, especially in the flow and like we feel like we have purpose, you probably heard that today more than once. You'll hear more of it from Joe. We feel like we're coming alive. The imposter gets silenced. But as soon as we spend more time in our Wither column, the imposter gets more voice. We take everybody I get to coach, the CEOs and their management teams. I like doing that, especially when they're growing, because I want to make sure that we kind of horse trade responsibilities. Now, one of the things that's in my behind the scenes reels is I'm college dropout. I didn't want anybody to know about that because every job that I've had since I dropped out of college, and I was advised by my advisor to take the job, I was offered a $10,500 job, no benefits, in 1982 after an internship. And in doing so, it became an albatross around my neck. Because every job I had was master's preferred, bachelor's required. I didn't have either one of those. I was on an academic scholarship that went away as soon as I dropped out. So if it wasn't for the fact of good people advocating for me and encouraging me and helping circumvent the HR process, I wouldn't have had any of those jobs. I guarantee that. So the better example of shine a light on it is a woman named Tana Green. She's probably one of the best CEOs and entrepreneurs that I've ever gotten to meet, especially female. And it's not that there's good or bad on female or male, but she's a very accomplished female entrepreneur. And when I got to start working with her and her management team, because they were at an inflection point a few years ago, she gave me this book. She wrote it, she designed it, it's called Creating a World of Difference. Well, man, you talk about putting a spotlight on something that you don't want anybody to know about. She did it right here. In this, she reveals that at age 15, she had a child out of wedlock. Not something you want to talk about here in the South. She gets married to the guy, has the baby. He beats her up, throws her in the hospital, and abandons her and the baby. She gets out of the hospital, goes back to high school. She didn't want a GED, she wanted to go back. So, baby in tow, she graduates 2 years behind her class. She wants to go to college, but all she can afford is a 2-year secretarial degree. Those aren't necessarily the credentials of the people that are entrepreneurs in the big companies that you think about, and yet she had 10,000 W-2 employees when I was working with her, and she now has 12,000. And even about a year and a half ago, she said, "Gary, I don't know what I'm doing." I said, "Tana, are you kidding me? Why would you say that?" She goes, "I only have a 2-year secretarial degree." I said, "Tana, you know what that is? It's imposter syndrome." She goes, "Yeah, you're right." Just because we shine a light on it doesn't mean that we still don't deal with it. But this takes tremendous courage to do that. The fourth weapon. Focus on serving more than how somebody perceives you. So remember I said I had to leave my own ad agency. I came to Charlotte, North Carolina in 1994. Didn't know anybody here, had never been here. Love Charlotte, it's got trees. Kansas didn't. And so we come here, I bring a $2 million account, British Aerospace, I bring my top designer with me. And 6 months into the gig, I signed, seal, and deliver everything that I said I would do. And on the first day of my designer's honeymoon, Monday, I think it was February 14, if I'm not mistaken, my partner says, "Today's your last day." I'm like, "What? You owe me $30,000. And we have an employment contract." He said, "So sue me." He knew I forgave hundreds of thousands of dollars with my partner in Kansas. I needed that 30 grand more than the hundreds because it's all I had. So, I've been knocking on doors for 3 months and nobody's answering the doors. I'm at the sideline of the Harris Y soccer field and feeling kind of crappy and by myself. But I'm watching my 5-year-old play swarm ball, soccer, and this other soccer dad is watching his 5-year-old play swarm ball too. And he strikes up a conversation with me and says, "So what do you do for a living?" I froze. I was embarrassed. I felt like a loser. You know, I had shame. I didn't know anybody was unemployed in South Park, in South Charlotte. I didn't know very many people in Charlotte, period.
I wanted to lie to him, but I knew that I'd feel even worse about myself if I lied. So I said, I'm unemployed. He said, what's your background? I said, I turned around an ad agency in Wichita, Kansas. Sure will. He says, well, that's interesting because First Union just re-engineered their marketing department. They're looking for somebody like you. Get me your resume and I'll get it to the right people. Sure enough, he did. 3 weeks later, I had a job and a $10,000 signing bonus. Thank you, Lord. As a friend of mine, Jeffrey Gittimer, says, serendipity happens when God chooses to remain anonymous. Well, that was in 1995. 2017 is Thanksgiving week, and I love Thanksgiving. It's a time to really reflect. And I thought, about all these people that have had such a positive impact in my life, and I thought about Jim Manley, that soccer dad. He threw this drowning man a lifeline, and I wanted to honor him. So I wrote a 1,300 character post on LinkedIn. As soon as I was getting ready to hit publish, all of that wave of emotion, shame, overwhelming. But I thought, man, I want to honor that guy more than I'm afraid of people rejecting me. Because I'm thinking, Gary, why in the world are you even going to expose that? People don't need to know that. That's in the past. You're going to open yourself to ridicule and trolls, which that happens. But I hit publish anyway. To my great surprise, the thing went viral. 8.3 million people read that post. It took me 2 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks to answer the emails and comments. And I know of one guy that I actually met with in person because he reached out to me and he was in a dark place. What I didn't know is how dark it was because he was contemplating suicide. Think about that. We have no idea the ripple effect of our actions and what we do. But it was only because I said, I want to serve that guy, Jim Manley. I want to honor him more than I'm afraid of what people think about me. The fifth thing. This is probably the most powerful weapon in the arsenal. Gratitude journal. This is mine. I put 3 entries in it every day. I'm grateful for, ... followed by a thought or a prayer. Now remember I said I was in Cleveland, Ohio, and so every day that we see blue sky and sunshine, like we do here, that's one of my things. Thank you, Lord. We had far too little of it in Cleveland, Ohio. Well, Cleveland, Ohio is where I experienced the power of intentional gratitude. Besides the gray skies, we went through financial devastation there. In 2004, I invested in a private equity company that was very interesting and very unique. I loved it. I thought this is going to be my forever place. When they hired me, they bought my consultancy in 2005 and put me on the board. Well, forever ended in 2009. The CEO, who I counted among my closest friends, there's a pattern here evidently. We found out that he had lied about a bunch of stuff. The board throws him out. The place implodes. $30 million worth of us wiped out. 30. And I am filleted financially. I have 2 kids in college. I don't know how in the world I'm going to make it. And if it wasn't for one of those board members that kept me alive, I wouldn't have. 90 people gone. The board says, stay in the ring with us, Gary. We shut down 11 offices. We have lawsuits flying repeatedly. And this didn't just happen for a couple weeks. It went on for years. And it got so bad I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I wasn't going to commit suicide. But I was bummed when I found out that I woke up. Because my wife would have done better with the insurance money. I had to find the power of intentional gratitude, and I had to say, there's got to be something that I can find that I'm grateful for. And guess what I did? It didn't change my circumstances. but it changed my attitude. The sixth weapon. Celebrate the anything but typical in yourself and other people versus comparing yourself with them. We're all creative, unique, and interesting, and our thumbprints prove it. Jude Colangelo is here. At least I saw him earlier. And he's an identical twin. Even his thumbprint's different than his identical twin. That says that unique by design, to me. That's why we started this podcast, Anything But Typical Podcast. We don't monetize it, but we want to feature the behind-the-scenes reels of entrepreneurs that have the humility to do that, because I figure it will encourage somebody else, whether they're an entrepreneur or not. But when you see humility in other people, it brings life. And when we celebrate the uniqueness of others and ourselves, instead of comparing show reel versus our behind-the-scene reel, the imposter is silenced. The seventh and final weapon. Find somebody outside the jar to help you read the label. Because it's hard to read the label when you're inside the jar. 4 years ago, I brought my coaching practice into this regional CPA firm. They were doing some coaching and they wanted me to bring that in. And I do business development for them too. And we had an outside coach. We still do. And at that time, our outside coach was going to be retiring, and the other owners said, "Gary, why don't you be our coach?" And I said, "Nope." And they said, "We'll pay you." Well, that's a lot coming from a CPA. And I said, "I would love the money, but no." Well, why? Because I'm inside the jar. We did that at my first turnaround. We brought in a guy. It was $10,000 a day plus expenses, and flying into Wichita, Kansas ain't a cheap flight. We paid him up front, but because it was desperate. And what I learned at that point, and this is in the early 90s, wow, the power. And it wasn't because this guy was Einstein. He wasn't. But it was because he was outside the jar. So to recap, remember you're not alone. That's number one. Number two, thrive with it. Number three, shine a light on it. Oh, that's going to take a lot of courage to do, though. But do it. It'll set you free, and it'll set more people free. The fourth one, focus more on serving somebody than how they perceive you. You might save somebody's life. Gratitude journal, that'll save yours. Finding gratefulness. And I don't know why, but I learned it in the depths of my despair. Celebrate the anything but typical in yourself and in other people. And finally, get somebody outside the jar to help you read the label. Finally, if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn, try to do that. I've got my connection requests that are filled. I'll have to bump somebody that I don't know. But I want to leave you with these two assignments. Since we're in a school, you might as well have some homework. Two things. The first thing, and I want you to do this today, write down something you're grateful for. And put a thought or a prayer about it. The second thing, I want you to think of someone you're grateful for and tell them. I'm so grateful that my wife and son are here. And my son, that 5-year-old that was playing soccer swarm ball, well, he became a shoe designer for Reebok. And now he has his own company, shoe company called Flux Footwear. I just saw that they were mentioned in Men's Health as best cross-training shoe. He didn't even tell me that. He's got that humility. I appreciate that. So thank you very much for your time.